Hi, I think I am on. I never know if I am on or not. One sec, I just have to check. Nearly there. Okay, yes. All right. Nope. Volume's up. How are you? You well? Monday going well? I hope it's going great. It's fine if it's not though. Now, we're going to do some meditation. This isn't a class, it's just a chance to meditate together. These meditations are part of the further emergence work I do. I do them on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday and Friday we just get on with it, we just meditate. But Mondays I explain what I do for the benefit of people who are new to meditation. So if you're an experienced meditator, if you're used to it, fantastic. Can you just hang on though while I do that, while I explain what I do? And then also, if you're curious about, well, what's this further emergence thing about, I'll explain all about that when we're finished, the meditation part. So there's lots of different types of meditation. This is what I do. For me, it starts with why I would meditate. I'm trying to connect to a part of me that I connect to every night when I go to sleep. Not the dreaming bit, the bit after dreaming. So I'm dreaming and then I drop out the bottom of dreaming into deep dreamless sleep where I have no thoughts, no memories, no feelings, no personality, no emotions. Don't really have a body, don't have a bed, no bedroom, nothing. Everything is gone, including me. Meaning I sort of cease to exist, certainly in the way that I normally register my existence. So that all sounds awful, doesn't it? That sounds like death. And yet I love going to sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I feel refreshed. So some part of me knows that wherever I go is a good place. And that's where I want to go to when I meditate. I just want to do it consciously. So straight away, if you're new to meditation, don't try this lying down because chances are you'll fall asleep. And if you don't fall asleep, you'll possibly battle sleep. Both of which are kind of counter to what we're trying to do or what you're trying to do in meditation. So yeah, sit up. You don't have to sit in the lotus position or anything like that. I'm just sitting in a chair. If you're going to sit in a chair, make sure it's not a big comfy armchair that you're just going to fall asleep in. You'll just be back to that side of things again. But yeah, sitting up is helpful. So as I said, there's no thinking in this place that I want to go to. It's almost like my mind can't get to this place. It's like a room that I go into when I meditate, and my mind has to wait outside the door. So that can be pretty boring for my mind. So I have to figure out a way of getting my mind on board for the whole endeavor. So what I do is I just say to my mind, or I just make a deal or an arrangement with my mind where I say, could you just not think for the next 15 minutes because we want to meditate? And at this stage, my mind is on board. It's like, fine, okay, meditation, fine, it's only 15 minutes. Having your mind on board is important. It's not usually an issue when you're starting out meditating because it's a novelty and your mind likes novelty. So there won't be much resistance. The resistance only kicks in if you want to sort of have a long-term meditation practice. And if you are having trouble with that, if you ask me a question in the comments, I'll try and answer it at the end. So my mind is on board. Good. Next thing, stop thinking. Now, stopping thinking is actually easier than you would think. The difficulty with stopping thinking is to maintain it. But to stop is easy. Because regardless of what I'm thinking about, which would be like the content of my thoughts, the structure of my thought, it's always the same. It's always pictures and sound. So if I turn off the pictures and I turn off the sound, and by sound I mean internal dialogue, monologue, commentary, that kind of thing. So if I turn off the pictures and I turn off the sound, that's it, I'm not thinking. And as soon as I do that, I'm into the practice of meditation. Now, the practice of meditation runs parallel to the intention of my meditation. The intention of my meditation is, as I said, to go to this deep, still, profound, calm, zen-like, still, all those words that I use to describe meditation, to go to that place. And the practice of meditation pretty much starts as soon as I turn off the pictures and I turn off the sound. And it generally kind of goes, I'll turn off the pictures and I'll turn off the sound. I'll bring myself to not thinking. And then some time will pass and I'll discover I'm thinking again. I go, oh, I'm thinking again. Turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, bring myself back to not thinking. Then some more time will pass and I'll discover I'm thinking again. I go, oh, I'm thinking again. Turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, bring myself back to not thinking. And some more time will pass and I'll discover I'm thinking again. I go, oh, I'm thinking again. Turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, and so on. So it's pretty simple. Whenever I discover that I'm thinking, I bring myself back to not thinking. And it's good to know that thinking can happen in meditation, because it's quite easy to get the misconception that to meditate correctly, you shouldn't be thinking at all, which isn't my experience. It's these two things, my intention and my practice, they kind of go together and they sort of do a dance, back and forth. Sometimes I'll be discovering, sometimes I'll be very deep and still, and then other times I'll be discovering that I'm thinking. And both are powerful. They're powerful in their own way. It's kind of obvious when you're very deep and still. You can feel the changes in your nervous system, your body kind of settles down. It's lovely. It's not so obvious, the power side of it is not so obvious when you're discovering that you're thinking. It's much more of a space to kind of go, oh no, I'm thinking, or judge it, or start thinking about how much you're thinking. But generally the way it goes, if you're like me, and the sort of things that you think about, they're all kind of to do with you, meaning you're all from your perspective. So I'll be thinking, what did I say that for? Why did that person say that thing to me? Or what am I going to do about this other thing? So let's say I'm in the middle of meditation and I've started thinking and I'm having one of those kind of thoughts. And then I go, oh, thinking, turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, bring myself back to not thinking. Indirectly, what I'm saying to myself and what I'm demonstrating to myself is, that thought that you just had, the one that you thought was you and that you were it, well, you just made that disappear. You just made it, poof, go, disappear, gone. So you're not that thought, even though you thought you were. You're not that thought. In fact, you're not any of your thoughts. You're something else. That's very powerful. And then the fact that you do that repeatedly, that's very powerful as well. So the thing is not to start thinking about how much you're thinking and thinking, oh, I'm having to bring myself back a lot, because there's no right or wrong amount of times that you should be bringing yourself back from thinking, because it changes day to day and hour to hour. You might meditate in the morning and only have to bring yourself back a few times from thinking, and then you might meditate in the afternoon and you have to bring yourself back loads, hundreds of times. One is not better than the other. It's not the way it works. Pretty much the golden rule is whenever you discover that you're thinking, bring yourself back to not thinking. If you do that simple thing, every time you discover that you're thinking, you bring yourself back to not thinking. If you do that, you're doing great. Now, while all that's going on, I also am becoming a bit more conscious of my body, and particularly tension in my body. So what I do is I scan my body from my head down to my feet and back up again very slowly, very gently, and anywhere I find tension, I let it go. And I use my out breath to let it go, because it's natural to just breathe it away. It often reminds me of, if you're on the beach and you see the water coming in and out very slowly, not big waves now, it just comes in and goes out. And, every time the water goes out, the sand is a bit more smooth. That water going out, that's what the out breath feels like to me. Every time I breathe out, I can breathe away any tension I find. So it's natural. So I do it for that reason. But then I also do it because it's just a good way of bringing a bit more attention to my breathing, because it's quite easy to hold your breath during meditation. With all the thinking, not thinking stuff going on, it's quite easy to kind of hold your breath or stop breathing altogether. So using the out breath is just a nice way of bringing a bit more consciousness to my breathing. The other thing I do is, as I'm scanning my body up and down, I spend a little bit more time, or I focus a little bit more on any structures in my body that go across or transverse. Mostly my body runs longitudinally, head to toe. Anywhere in my body, any structures in my body that go across, they have a tendency to pick up tension. a little bit like a log going across a stream. It picks up all the twigs and the branches, anything that's coming down the stream, except in my body, that's tension. So I'm spending a little bit more time on my eyes. They're transverse sight, my jaw, my tongue, base of my neck, my shoulder girdle. All my joints are transverse sight, so my shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers. My heart area, my respiratory diaphragm, my intestines, my pelvic floor, my hips, my knees, my ankles, and my toes. Having a nice quiet room is very helpful when you're starting out in meditation, because one of the things that triggers thoughts is noise, little noises. And as soon as you close your eyes to meditate, your hearing amplifies. So the quieter the room that you have, the easier it'll be on yourself. You're just giving your mind less triggers for thinking. And the other thing I do to help my mind is I set a timer for how long I'm going to meditate for. Now I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes, but if you're brand new to meditation, I'd encourage you to set your timer for 5 minutes and then repeat it 3 times, because 15 minutes is a long time if you're not used to it. I know that sounds strange, but it is. When your eyes closed and not thinking, 15 minutes is a long time. Even if you set a timer on your own, around the 7-minute mark, your mind will come in going, you didn't set the timer right. The internet's gone. John's, forgot, to do something or whatever. So yeah, 5 minutes and then repeat it 3 times. Okay. So off we go into the mystery. it's time, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So as I said at the beginning, these meditations are part of the further emergence work I do. If you're curious about further emergence is to do with growth, inner growth, growth in consciousness. You could call it spiritual growth, growth in awareness. Because your body pretty much stops growing when you become an adult, but you keep growing for the rest of your life on the inside. That doesn't stop. And just like when you were a kid, you might have gone through periods of accelerated growth. They're called growth spurts. Same happens on the inside. And they continue for the rest of your life as well. But there's a big difference between the two, because when you were a kid and you were going through a growth spurt and you went to your parents and said, I've got pains in my legs, or whatever, you had the growing pains, you wouldn't have been rushed to hospital, or you wouldn't have been brought to the doctor. Your parents would have just said, oh, well, that's terrible, but it's natural. They're called growing pains, or you're going through a growth spurt and it'll pass. That's much harder to know when you're an adult and you're like 25, 35, 45, whatever age you are, and you're going through an inner growth spurt. Much harder to know that it's natural and it'll pass and it's all right. There's a much bigger space to feel like there's something wrong with you, you're broken in some way, and this is not normal or natural in any way at all. So the overarching sort of focus of further emergence is to support growth, and then in particular when growth is really hard during those inner growth spurts. So we do that in a couple of different ways. These meditations are part of it, because the meditation helps you become familiar with your inner landscape. The more familiar you are with your inner landscape, the easier it is to navigate these difficult growth spurts. So there's that. There's a retreat every 3 weeks, and that's a combination of more meditation, longer meditation, deeper meditation, and then questions and answers and sharing and seeing, oh yeah, there's other people going through a similar kind of process. Because one of the difficult things about going through an inner growth spurt is you can feel like you're really on your own with it. Because, you can, depending on how it manifests, it's very different from person to person. But a common one is where you can, go for almost overnight, nobody understands you and you don't understand anybody anymore. Your world doesn't, you feel like you don't fit in your life anymore. So going to the retreats is helpful, because you can kind of look at other people and go, oh, okay, they're going through the same thing. I'm not on my own. This is not as... it's not as isolating. So the retreats are great. You can look at the YouTube channel. There's kind of extracts from the retreats there, or the podcast. Podcast is a combination of, sometimes I'm either interviewing somebody, or it'll be the audio from one of the retreats. Then I also work with people one-to-one. That's helpful, because how further emergence or an inner growth spurt expresses itself in a person, it's very individual. So I've been through it myself loads of times, and I've helped lots of other people through it as well. So the one-to-one work is really helpful, because you get very specific feedback about your particular situation. And it's a combination of talking, like on Zoom, and then there's a part where I use my craniosacral skills, because I've been a craniosacral therapist for many years. So I use those remotely to sort of help the persons, whoever I'm working with, help their system harmonize the process of change and growth that they're going through. So they're great. Then I also do a shorter kind of one-to-one work, more for people who are like, no, all this consciousness stuff, spirituality stuff, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm a bit lost. I just want some good reflection. So they're shorter as well. They're more in the kind of style of coaching. But again, it's all in the under that kind of further emergence umbrella. And then I've got books. There's books you can read as well. I've written 4 books, and they're all roughly around the subject of further emergence. So if you've listened to me so far, if you're still with me, maybe some part of you is going, yeah, there's something to this. So I'd encourage you to let that part tell you what the next thing for you is, whether it's the one-to-one work, the retreats, the meditations, or none of the above. That part of you will know. All right, so thanks very much for meditating with me.